Okay, strap in, everybody. This one's going to take a few minutes. As somebody who's a scientist by training, I tend to look for data. I don't care about emotion. I don't care about gut feel. I care about data. What does the data tell me is going on? The data tells me this guy has problems. So that's Chris Cox, the CEO of Hasbro. You can see he's wearing his required D20 shirt on one of you, although I read someplace he's never even played Dungeons and Dragons. We'll let that part go for a minute because strap in is going to get bumpy. For a while, Hasbro's been having financial troubles like a lot of companies are when there's a weird stuff going on in the economy. But their fourth quarter was atrocious. Anybody's like, oh, it's D&D. No, it was across the board. They just sucked in the fourth quarter. It wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't Wizards of the Coast. It wasn't the Dungeons and Dragons movie. That was 30 million bucks they lost. For a multi-billion-dollar company, it sounds weird, but that's round up error, so who cares? But let's look at a few things. And here's the problem. Hasbro lost more money per share in the fourth quarter than any CEO who wants to keep his job should be comfortable with. So what he has to do or had to do is cut the bleeding, and he needs to cut it really fast, and he needs to raise cash really fast so that he can do this weird trick called a stock buyback, where he can go off and purchase back a bunch of the stock to drive the stock price up. Hasbro buying its own stock. That way the shareholders all are happy because the stock price rises, and he can continue to pay a dividend. How the hell are you going to do that when you're losing shitloads of money? Well, you divest yourself of your movie studio. There's one, which they already did. You start digging into what other things can you do to cut costs. They laid off a bunch of people. Okay. You stop future production on things that might be expensive. Oh, Joe Manganiello and the Dragonlance streaming series we were all looking forward to. That's gone. Now you start looking at what else can I do? Well, lately he came out and said, well, we're data mining all of the IP in Dungeons and Dragons so that we can plug it into an AI and use the AI to take that 50 years of stuff and throw it into the future for development. Sounds like something the community would really not accept, myself included, and I work in AI every day. Now let's go a little bit deeper here. What else has he done? He's starting to look at the history stuff that Dungeons and Dragons is the 50th anniversary, right? So 50 years of the role-playing game that really did change the world. Because let's face it, hit points in video games wouldn't be a thing if it hadn't been for Gygax and Arneson. It might have predated them a little bit, but they made it popular. The other thing that is coming out is this sort of compiled history book, and this dude's already been on the air going, or already been on podcasts, news shows, and everything else. Well, in the early days, what they did then wouldn't pass today's inclusivity checks. Well, really? I don't know that that's true, because there's been campaigns with people of color, half elves. There's been all kinds of stuff, even in the early stuff that wasn't necessarily exclusive of anybody. It may not have come out and specifically said, okay, if you are this, you are fine. No, it didn't really. But it's a game, right? So it's really up to the people around the table and their imagination. And I've read most of the early books. I can't think of anything in any of them that's inherently racist or sexist or anything else. Yes, the company was mostly run in the early days, the first 20 employees, by men. Yes, they were mostly white. It was in Wisconsin. Not much we can do about that. It was a small company at the time. Then you started bringing in, Rose Estes, Margaret Weiss. There are tons of developers, game developers working on dungeon modules that were women early on in some of the basic stuff. So it wasn't just run by men; it was run by men and women. So yeah, I think what he's trying to do is make himself look good, make the Dungeons and Dragons brand more appealing, while he shops it and tries to sell it off so he can raise cash to go do whatever it is Hasbro wants to do next. Is that possible? Because it is one of the golden nuggets. It is one of the pieces out there that's inside their portfolio that they actually tout is making money. It's growing. It's got a good fan base. The fan base is rabid. The fan base comes out every time. I'm one of them. Baldur's Gate 3 was a smash, but oh wait, the company that was the group that was developing Baldur's Gate just pulled out, so there's not going to be a new expansion pack or Baldur's Gate 3, which means Baldur's Gate 4, which means this dude has already milked it for all the cash he can get out of it. And okay, Critical Role, hey, oh crap, wait, Critical Role pulled out because these guys didn't really pay attention to some of the agreements that, oh shit, it really does look like he's trying to make himself out to be the hero. and just this either tragic comedy of 53 screw ups, in a row, where just bad shit happens to a good label, Dungeons and Dragons, or he's got a plan. And it's his plan to either sell it off or to get someone else to deal with it so that he could just take a royalty check at the end of the day. What the hell is he doing? But it doesn't sound like what he's doing is let's build a future of Dungeons and Dragons. It sounds like what he's doing is let's build a future for Chris Cox. Is that possibly what he's after? He's building a future for himself and the shareholders. He doesn't give a shit about the game. I don't know. Could that be it? Is it at all possible? Wherever would a CEO do what's really just best for himself? I've never, oh, wait, kind of every time, right? So is that really what's best for the game, or is that what's best for Chris? And if they do divest themselves of it, where is it going to go? Who's going to wind up with it? I know what you're saying. Everybody's like, oh, Dr. Imholt, go after it. I've thought about it. Trouble is, that's a really big nut they're going to want. It's going to be a pile of cash. It's going to be something huge. And that's a big one to go after. And it takes it takes a team to do it. It's not just a one-man show. Um, can it be rescued? I think it can. Can we get this guy out of the helm? I think that could happen. How's that going to take place? I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. So I don't know. I may have fallen now deeply into the camp of this guy doesn't give a shit, just despite his t-shirt, his required D20 t-shirt. And despite his going, no, we see a great future using AI and all this stuff that the community has said openly they don't really want. Oh, wait, forgot about that OGL thing that you guys, got really pissed off at me about, and then I changed my mind. Yeah, he's not in this for the fan base. He's not in this for the customers. He's not putting the customer first. He's putting himself first. And anytime I've ever seen a CEO not put the customer first, it's the beginning of the end. Everybody, including myself, who runs and owns and operates a company, you have to put your customer first. They have to be kind of the only thing that matters to you, because otherwise they stop spending money with you and your company goes out of business and you can't pay your employees. It's a weird thing to be an employer, because you have to think, at least if you're like me, I don't know about this guy. If you're like me, you think, hey, I've got X number of employees. And when you're self-employed and you're just employing yourself and you screw up and you lose your job, okay, that's on you, right? If I screw up, a lot of people lose their job, and that's not, that doesn't sit well with me, because it doesn't just impact my family, it impacts many families, and it's not their fault. So I need to be on point every time. And I don't think this guy's doing that. He's not putting the customer first, because the customer is where he gets paid. The customer is where the shareholder sees returns. The customer is what matters, not how can we manipulate the stock price to make it look better. And I think that's what he's doing. I think he's trying to figure out a way to fuck with the stock price until it kind of, oh, look, we now have enough cash. I'm going to buy some back. Oh, look, the stock went up. Congratulate me. Yay, pat on back. Golden parachute. I'm out. So we'll see. I could be completely wrong, but I think this guy has something up his sleeve, and I think they're shopping it. I really do. Because he's really trying to make it look appealing for somebody to go off and purchase. There's no other reason for him to do some of the crap he's been doing, other than putting shareholders first and customers second. And I don't want to say that, hey, putting shareholders first is wrong. But if you're running an effective business, the way you put the shareholders first is to put your customer first. The more customers you have, the happier they are, the more they spend with you, the happier your shareholders are. It's not that hard, right? It's pretty simple. You're in business to sell shit to people. And if the people you're selling shit to are pissed off at you, they ain't buying anything, right? Well, there's no spreadsheet in the world that can fix that problem more than maybe 1 or 2 quarters. So um, agree with me, disagree with me, leave your comments below, like, subscribe, follow, whatever it takes. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be watching this dude like a fucking hawk from now on.